It's time for a conversation with Bob and Sherry.
I did a little bit of calculation today, Bob. I am now around 17,975 days of being a woman. So,
Wow, congratulations.
thank you. Thank you.
You made it.
Yeah, I made it. But this is what I've done. So, for Mother's Day, I drove myself to a local nursery and purchased planters and flowers, and I have to plant them myself. Then I happened to see this wonderful video of Dylan Mulvaney shopping at Case Bay, picking up spring outfits and little purses that I personally cannot afford. So I'm thinking, geez, for 365 days being a woman, I'm now 17,000, almost 18,000 days in being a woman. What am I doing wrong?
Why don't you become a man? Why don't you do my first day as a man?
Yeah, but you know what? If you look at the media, I have not seen one trans man being endorsed by any company. Dylan got Bud Light. He has Case Bay, KitchenAid, even Tampon. Tampon for all things. I don't know where he's sticking it to, but whatever. But the thing is, I have not seen one trans man, female, to walk into, like Gillette is not endorsing any of those people that on shaving cream. Women uses Gillette too. I have not seen men's swimming suit. I have not seen any Nikes and any sports. Why is it that all the endorsement went to trans female but nothing go to trans male? That is inequality again. So women get screwed either way. If we're biologically born
wait.
or transition to a man, we're screwed.
Let's talk about that for a minute. A woman deciding to dress up and be a man is really not much of a threat, if you want to call it that, or an imposition on men's rights. But the
No.
other way around, when you look at sports and a lot of things, I mean, there's been a women's movement because if you go back in time, it's a male dominated world. So you would think a man dressing up as a woman is more of sort of a threat to women as opposed to the other way around. So they're actually endorsing something that's not great for women.
It's already a threat. They're taking over endorsement from women. Adidas just had two or one man, two men, I don't know what it is, dressing up in women's swimming suit with a giant bulge in front of them. I mean, okay, so they're infiltrating modeling, they're infiltrating sports, and what else are they infiltrating? So if I'm a natural born female, my opportunity or my friend's daughter's opportunity is being taken away. But yet, in the men's world, if I decide to transition to a man, I'm not getting any of that accolade. Right? First of all, I can't participate in men's sport because I know I'm going to get beat up. I can model for man because I don't have the body for it. Even though you can do all the transitioning you want, you're never going to get the muscle mass a man naturally born with. I mean, we're screwed either way.
All right, I have another theory. And I've heard this, and anecdotally, it kind of fits what I've observed. The people that are most behind this pro trans movement are the white, suburban, more affluent women. Women are driving it much more than men, and white women. So, marketer, Bud Light aside, I was going to say marketers aren't stupid, but they were in that case because
Well,
their customer base for Bud Light is young men,
right.
right? Macho sports type men. And that didn't go over well at all for them. But look at the other products. You have, transgender, a biological male promoting women's products, and you don't see the kind of out backlash and financial, you know, penalties that you saw with Anheuser-Busch. So maybe that's it. The target audience for this stuff is really the, white suburban woman.
Rich, white, suburban,
Rich.
rich women that has a lot of time on their hand, that has a lot of white guilt, and they have the time and the money to go shop. A KitchenAid processor is what, couple $100, right? They're not cheap. They're $200 to $400. Case Bay, a tiny little purse that Dylan was, flaunting in the video, that's $200 to $300, sometimes over $1,000. Well, that is not something somebody like me can afford. So I have a child, I have, a couple businesses, and, small business owners struggle through the pandemic. I mean, most mothers have 2 to 3 kids, cannot afford to go into Case Bay and do spring shopping. And neither do we have the body of a little boy. Dylan is a kind of skinny little boy body. I can't fit into those dresses. He's probably a size 0. So let's put it that way. I give birth to a 9-pound, 5-ounce baby. My body's completely ruined.
Well, Dylan never has to worry about that.
No, he never have to worry about giving birth to a child and worry about birth pain and, all the weight gain, all the crazy hormone changes after that. No, he just have to worry about looking pretty as a girl and getting paid for it. I'm really pissed. You know what? The more we talk about this, the more pissed off I am. So that's my rant.
Okay.
It's just so unfair. And then what really makes me frustrating is all these women movement, the Me Too movement, the Time's Up movement. They were fighting so hard for women's right to be in a good position in corporation and modeling and advertising, any type of, it was started in the entertainment business. But now we're letting biological man infiltrating female spaces or female careers and female athletes. That's just so unfair. And nobody's standing up for it. And the women that's standing up for it and fight for it are being looked down upon by the media as some sort of racist or whatever. No, we just want true equality. And really what kills me too is traditionally, where me being a wife and a mom, and you understand this as a husband, the wife at home, the traditional male and female role is played out. A man takes care, protects the wife. Now, women needs to be listened to, yada, yada, yada. Now, the transgender female is on a much higher hierarchy than natural born women.
Yep, they are.
All these years, centuries of fighting, this is what we get?
There's a word for that. It's
What?
actually a theory. Do you know the word?
I don't know.
Intersectionality.
Oh, what is that?
That's what intersectionality is. Intersectionality says that, white people are oppressors, black people are oppressed. Okay? So, but within the black community, women are also oppressed. So a black woman is more oppressed than a black man. All right? So basically you combine these these identities, and the more intersections you have, the more oppressed you are. So in that cultural narrative, it sort of elevates you in terms of worth and authority and every other way. So a trans woman, because they're trans, they have their trans oppression and their woman oppression. They've adopted that. So yes, they're on a higher on the hierarchy than women are.
And trans female is in a higher hierarchy than the trans man, which is biological female trans into a man.
Well, good point.
Right?
Yeah. So that trans man basically surrendered their woman identity. So now they're a trans man. So maybe they're kind of a lateral move.
It's not a lateral move. So if you think about it, a natural born man still does better in status, society, whatever, than a trans.
Okay, right. Well, I just meant compared to being a biological woman versus being a trans man.
Right.
I don't know who's higher.
In the man's world, a trans man is still not as hierarchy as a regular natural born man.
Right.
Because the majority of the women are still looking for that traditional men who can protect you and be married to, all that stuff. But
that's why they're oppressed.
Right. But in the female world, in the women's world, now trans female, which is natural born man, now enjoys much more privilege than natural born female. So in that sense, there's still inequality between men and women in the traditional sense. Okay, I'm done.
What you have with these left wing worldviews, they don't want to talk about them. They will use the words and the terms when they're speaking as an authority figure, but they don't want to debate them. They don't want to talk about them. They say there's no such thing as CRT. Intersectionality is a part of CRT. So they'll say intersectionality when they're speaking, some expert speaking to that group, but they don't want to debate it. It's so, because it does explain what's happening, and when you identify it, it makes it even more absurd.
Yeah, it is. It is, because women are just being kicked down more and more down on the ground as these type of things happening. Whether you are natural born woman turn into a man, or just natural born woman stay as a woman, in that sense, we're still on the much lower in the totem pole. In the man's world, a regular man like you, like my husband, gonna look at a trans man going like, right? And you move on. But in my world, the world of women, you see all these women, all these companies giving these trans women who used to be a man all these accolades, everything. It's like, what the heck?
Have you heard of the program The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? It's on
yes,
Prime.
It's on Prime. Yeah, I've heard of it. I never watched it.
It's actually good. My wife and I are watching it. So it takes place in the 50s, and it's illustrating, the differences, like what it was like for women before the women's rights movement. But it's good because it's not really preachy. It is like you kind of are looking in a window back in time, because the women themselves, they're not, how would you say? They're not sort of preachy. They're not like speaking 21st century language and standing up against the patriarch or none of that. It's just a window into, what it was like. And her husband was an aspiring stand-up comedian. And he failed so badly as a comedian. He bombed one night so badly, it brought to a head. He basically left her. He said he was ashamed as a man. He had failed as a man. And it turned out he also had a girl on the side. So he left her.
There you go.
Okay. Well, in her frustration, she was drinking. She was angry and frustrated. I forgot, but somehow she ended up at this comedy club, and she went on stage and she just vented. And it was hilarious. And that turned it. So she basically became a stand-up comedian. So it's now her as a woman, working in the 50s as a stand-up comedian. And as soon as people see her, they're like, because she's attractive. So they say, "Oh, you're a singer, right?" "No, I'm a comedian." "Oh, you can't be a comedian. Nobody's going to laugh at an attractive woman."
Yeah.
So it's like that all the way through. And, now her father just found out about it, and she tells off-color jokes and things like that. So it's showing the conflict with her and her father, her and her ex-husband. It's interesting. It's worth looking at.
Well, I like to see it. I've been following this Indian woman, Zarna. It's kind of the same thing. She's an immigrant. She's an attorney, and she's a mother of 3 kids. And then her daughter decided to encourage her to be a comedian. And I think there's you can do a lot of that. Because we deal with husbands and children and a lot of various scenarios. And you can find a lot of humor in that. I think a lot of times when I call my girlfriend and venting about my life, and there's a lot of funny things about it, It kind of just like when you and I had a back and forth about the mansplaining thing on Facebook. I think a lot of
it's hilarious. I don't buy into the whole mansplaining. I mean, I get,
because you're a man, That's why.
Well, I can see there are times where it's intentionally condescending, where a man is explaining something because she's a woman and because he assumes she doesn't know and things like that. But it's kind of become this, now it's never okay for a guy to explain something if a woman's around. That's just ridiculous. I'm a splainer. I've been explaining things to people
I know
forever.
you're an explainer.
It has nothing to do with you being a woman. Ask my sons.
I know you're an explainer. You're a natural born problem solver. When
That's
there's
what
a
I
problem,
do.
you want to solve it. But it's like sometimes when somebody tell you a problem, they don't really need you to solve it. They just want you to listen to it and agree with them. I think that's why women say mansplain. Not that I don't think mansplaining, to me at least, is not condescending. I think men naturally have this obligation or responsibility because you're a man. You feel like it's your job to explain or protect or instruct or guide.
So
With that. But women on
it's
the
belittling. It's belittling the woman. I mean, that's where it came from.
But some guys do it unintentionally. The intention is not to belittle. The intention is, I see a problem, I want to solve it.
But that's not mansplaining.
I think that's transitioning to mansplaining, but that's another subject.
No, mansplaining specifically is talking. So if we're having a conversation and a woman says, let's say we're in a business meeting, and a woman says something that's patently false. It's just not correct. It's wrong. A man can never correct that. Because it would be mansplaining.
You can correct it, but not in front of everybody.
Well, if it's a business meeting, you have to.
See, that's where women and men would differ,
well,
right?
You're mixing things, though, and I'm going to explain it.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
No, I get what you're saying about, and so what I've learned, and I know this with my wife, but I really refined it with you, like the artist, okay? My wife will say things. You will say things. And they're not accurate, okay? But I realize there are times you don't care if what you're saying is accurate. You're trying to express a feeling.
You got it.
Okay?
Women does not care if certain things are accurate or not. We just, exactly. But go on.
There are times where you say things that I take personally. Like it's a personal insult. Oh. And I'm like, she's not even thinking about what she's saying. She's just trying to get across what she's trying to get across. So I ignore it.
There you go. Well,
one time you said, well, Bob, you're all analytical. Nobody wants to listen to that. Well, that's kind of an insult, right?
That's not. I don't look at it as an insult.
Well, nobody wants to hear someone like you talk. That's how it sounds, okay? But then I reflect on the whole context of the conversation, and I'm like, she didn't think that through. It was just something she said to try to get to her point. She's trying to express herself.
Right.
And everything she says is just an attempt to try to express herself, and so it wasn't an insult. So I just ignore it.
Well, and now I will have to tell you, and I think our audience will agree. I did not realize until I got married, and I talked to a lot of my peers, wives, that's kind of like my personality, were very, I don't know, like free thinking kind of people. We all realized one thing. Our husbands are way more sensitive than we think they are.
Absolutely.
And things would just roll over our tongues. We would say it, forget about it, and move on. Well, 3 days later, my husband's still talking about it. I'm like, wait a second. I thought that was done and over with. So I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Well, and another thing, I was in a men's group at church, and I was going through a very difficult time, right? I didn't need any help with my problem. I didn't want any advice.
There you go.
And so I went to the group, and I said, I want to share something, but I want to tell you, going in, I don't want any advice. And I had to say that because there's one person in particular in the group that I knew was an advice giver. That no matter what you say, they're going to say, here's how you fix that. Here's how you fix that. Okay? I got this, okay? I don't feel like I need anybody's help solving the problem. It's just a burden that I'm carrying, and it's going to help me if I can share it with people. So I told them that. And I started sharing about it, and yeah, the one person who's an explainer, you can see his head was like going to explode. He really wanted to give me advice and tell me how to fix it, right? But it involves family, and it involves, there's so much nuance and things you can't possibly understand my situation. And, again, there may be times where I'm dealing with something that I need some advice because it's something new and I don't have any experience with. But this wasn't it. I just wanted to feel like I could relieve some of my burden by talking about it. And
Where you went wrong is you should have went to a women's group to do
I should
that
have.
instead of going to a man's group. If you go to a women's group, everybody would be like, I'm really sorry you're going through it. Oh my God, we'll pray for you. No one will offer you any advice.
That's great.
Except for listening.
And you know what? And as long as they don't talk about you behind your back, then.
Well, you can't control that. That's what we're good at. We're great at talking about people behind their back.
Because here's the and I can tell you, so as a young man, I was the same way. You love your wife, you see yourself as the helper and the protector, and you're going to fix everything. So when she has a problem or a hurt, or you want to fix it, okay? But I do know now more than ever that if I go to someone and I say, I've got this burden, I just need to, share it with you. They listen, and then they go, okay, do A, B, and C, and it'll go away. I don't feel like they're sharing my burden. I feel like they're dismissing everything that I'm feeling. They're dismissing, my struggle completely by saying, well, that's easy to fix. Just go do this. I mean, I've had men actually tell me that I've shared something with them, and then I regretted it because I got advice, right? So I said, okay, I'm just going to drop it here and move on with my life. I've actually had them come back to me, and if one was a boss. So I've actually had situations where I had to bring it up again because I was going to be away from work. And I got, did you do what I told you? No, I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because it doesn't really fit my situation, right? But then the attitude is, oh, well, if you're not going to do what I told you, then I can't help you. And, that's sort of the worst level right there, is where someone just says, well, I told you what to do. If you're not going to do it, then I don't want to hear anymore.
Guys don't like to be explained to.
No. Well, and I think most men are like that. Right. But here's another thing. All people are on a spectrum. This whole idea that a feminine guy is either gay or trans is not necessarily true. Same with a masculine, woman. The tomboy. They say we're transing all our tomboys.
Well, so let me just tell you a scenario that I recently personally went into. We do karaoke on a Sunday night, and there was this couple showed up, beautiful girl, right? And so, when this beautiful girl starts singing, I realized she is a trans. She was born, because you can tell. I told my husband, he's like, no, that's a girl, But they're just a regular couple hanging there by themselves, having a great time, no problem. So they've been coming in for a couple weeks now. Well, last Sunday, I had this group of men came in. They're older. One guy's in the 70s and 50s, and they're white and black men. They come in. I have to tell them to stop asking the poor girl questions. Leave the person alone. They're minding their own business. They're not shuffling their belief on anybody. He or she dressed like a complete female, and beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful. Now, on the other hand, my husband was in the class, and he was doing acting scene with this he thought was a girl, and she was a born female, and she dressed like a female. She has a hair like a female. He keeps showing me picture. He got an email from the instructor saying, that's not a female. You cannot refer she or her as a female. So yesterday I actually saw this person. I thought to myself, at least make an effort. You want to be a guy? Make an effort to be a guy. Cut your hair short, dress like a guy. I appreciate the other female. So you have people that just living their lives are actually trans, whatever. they mind their own business, they're not shuffling their belief in your face. Then you have other people that I think does it for attention. My biggest problem is two issues. One is the corporation, the media, the world, the mass media is embracing these trans female above the natural born women. That's my problem. My second problem is they're confusing the crap out of the children. And so, and I know we weren't going to talk about this today, but I urge everybody to look into Pennsylvania House Bill 300. And that is concerning at this point because that bill will allow your children as young as 11 and or 12 years old, I didn't look into the specific age, to do transitional either medication or treatments between this child and the school psychologist without the consent of the parent. So if these kids are transitioning, they don't even have to tell their parents they're transitioning. According to a friend of mine, that her son attends North Hill School District. That's happening in the school district. Kids can tell. But, if you have a girl dressing a certain way at school, but then when they're with their parents are acting differently, there's a suspicion where are they telling their parents? Do their parents know they're in the middle of transitioning 11, 12 years old? I think that's my biggest problem, right? We cannot confuse our children. Let them grow out of it or let them grow into it, however you want to look at it. But this is a life-altering situation. This is permanent. So if an 18-year-old, if you cannot buy a cigarette, you cannot vote, you cannot drink till 18 and 21, how is it you're able to make this type of decision on your own at 10, 11, sometimes even younger? I think that is my ultimate problem. The heartbreak parents will have to go through, a heartbreak these kids will have to go through at some point in their life. What if they said, wow, I didn't know what I was doing? Just no different. I remember there's children going through this goth period. They want to go dark eyeshadow, dark makeup. What if they say, I want to permanently tattoo that onto my face? Well, you can't get a tattoo until you're 18. You have to have parent consent. So why are we doing this to our kids? I think that's my biggest problem.
Wow, yeah, and they'll say that these things are reversible. They like to say puberty blockers put a pause button. It's not a pause button. The science has been corrupted. There's an organization called WPATH, who are, I forget the acronym, but it's the World Association of Transgender Health, and it's sort of like a industry group. We have Bluetooth, so they'll form a Bluetooth association alliance, and industry people will join it and work together to define standards. So anyone can join these things if you pay for it. Well, WPATH is an organization like that, and they are the ones setting the standard of care. They've been doing standard of care since the beginning. And I've found some information. There are international doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists criticizing this stuff only outside America. They're actually looking at what we're doing here in the United States and are very critical of what we're doing. Other countries that got started in this, like Sweden, are now moving away from it and saying, no, we're not doing this to kids. The data is not there to say that it's safe. The data is not there to say that it's reversible. And if you drill down, you can see that they could show you they map out the different standards of care. The latest one was just released was 8. And standard of care 8 has basically removed all parental notification stuff. So it basically, the standard of care recommended is that, do the kids know, do it for the kids. Anyway, I've started doing some research on it, and they said that there was a point in time where WPATH, I have an article from the former head of WPATH, the first transgender CEO of this association. And she says she left because it was being taken over by activists. So they have a certain membership. You have to be a member of the medical community, but there's another membership that anyone can join just by paying. And they said that activists have taken over and they participate in the meetings and in the, there's a process that they follow to combine all the different inputs. It's called the Delphi process. So these people, these activists have a big influence. This CEO said she left because they're no longer for the benefit of, science and health. But this doctors who are following standards of care don't necessarily even know that this is the organization that's establishing it.
Well, I think I will forever, with every show, scream about this. I am an activist to protect our children, to protect the next generation. I see signs out there that says protect trans kids. It went from anti-bullying to be kind and acceptance and tolerant, not protect trans kids. What about just protect kids?
Yep.
We need to protect our children from making life-altering decisions. So if they cannot do drugs, they can get tattooed, the cigarette. They need to look at this. I'm just terrified about this because this is going to lead up to an extinction of human race. Right now, it's only happening in the white culture, Western civilized white culture. It's not happening anywhere else in the Asian.
No, in the U.S. Like I said, in Europe, they're moving away from it.
Yeah, so it's going to lead to the distinction of a human race because these kids are not going to be able to get married, reproduce, and it's going to produce a generation of mental illness patients. Mm-hmm. So this is a scary stuff, and people are not out. And then by them elevating these trans female in the media, that's going to causing the children to say, hey, if I'm becoming that, look at the attention what I'm getting, right? If I'm becoming this. So kids look up to NBA stars, kids look up to celebrities. Now these are the people kids looking up to, or confused teen or a young adult seeking attention. They're not really looking into the learn to infer their own body. So
I just want to wrap that up with don't trust this science. Anyone that throws this at you and says doctors and scientists, I mean, I can show you exactly what's going on. I'm still researching it, but this is part of my splainer. For people that if you want some concrete evidence, I can give it to you. But the truth of the matter is, if you're a parent, then you understand how impressionable children are. You understand how the culture take a look at what's going on TikTok and on the social media and how these people are influenced. If you're an educator, if you're not a far left indoctrinated educator, you know. Everybody that knows kids knows what's going on here. Don't let anyone tell you that this science contradicts your common sense, because it does not. And the most concrete evidence I can give you is criticism from outside the United States of America, direct criticism of WPATH and this entire process that the doctors are following. So again, doctors may be totally unaware of what's influencing the standards of care that they're using, but they're also doctors who are in this business. That's just how they make their money.
Business, exactly. And don't let anybody to tell anyone how unimportant a father is to the family, right? It's they're killing the traditional nuclear family. As I'm raising my child, here's what I would definitely tell you. I'm raising a boy. I can't say for people with girls, but boys loves their mother, but look up to their dad.
Girls do too.
They will always do what their father do, and by seeing my husband, my son, doing things together and grow together, and we can kind of have fun together. The role of a father, I mean, you have two sons and a daughter, right? And the role of a father is super important. So don't let anybody take that away from your children. By taking the father away from a family, leaving a single mom struggling, busy working, and cannot attend to every need of a kid, this is when the society jump in, the activists come in to fill that void. Same thing with the human trafficking piece we did. Don't let anybody fill the void of your child. Really be participating in their lives. And the fact that the government want, like the piece you were talking about last time, right? Well, Kamala and Joe Biden said, these are not your kids. These are kids of the country. This is a talk like a communism party in
Mhm.
Russia. I mean, where are we getting at now? So, so
As
yeah.
a father of a daughter, I can tell you, watch Mrs. Maisel and observe the difference between then and today. The women's rights, women doing men's things like operating heavy equipment, hunting, anything that you would look at and say 20 years ago, even there weren't any women doing that. That didn't happen in spite of men. That happened because of fathers. I can
Yep.
guarantee you that. You will, the fathers, sure, the culture towards women's rights and things happen, but when a father has a daughter, he wants her to be independent. He doesn't want her to be weak and dependent on other men.
Right.
So, men, find any woman doing man things. I will bet you the vast majority of them were influenced by their fathers. My daughter changes her own tire on her van because of me, not because of her mother, not because of women's rights, because of me. Because
Right.
that's the influence I had on her. So if you see a woman doing man things and doing very well, don't ever think that that was done in spite of men fighting against it. That was because of fathers.
Exactly. And my son, I have a boy. He doesn't want to do anything I wanted to do. But here's the thing. I'm raising him also to be independent because I'm raising someone else's husband, right?
Hmm.
In my head, in 20 years, he's going to become someone's husband. So I want him to be independent, to be like his dad, to be like his father, to be more protector, and I'm the nurturer. So, and yeah, I think there's a reason why there's a mom and dad in the
Hmm.
family. And by taking that away, it's killing our society. And that all needs to come back. And I think people have to pay attention to that.
Well, they say that there's a lot of influence parents have on a child in the first 4 or 5 years, and how a daughter views men is going to be largely dependent on how she saw her father, how her father treated her mother and acted, and same thing with the boys. How they view men and women is vastly dependent on how their father and mother treated one another and how they modeled being a man or being a woman.
Right. Exactly.